Kindly take your seats. All right, welcome to the midsummer meeting of the Trumbull Town Council. This is our August 5th agenda. Would everybody please rise for a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Call the roll, please.
Michael Buswell. Mary Isaac.
Here.
Michael Colahan.
Here.
Bill Mecca. Ann Sather.
Here.
Jennifer Winchell.
Here.
Veronica Lenzen.
Here.
Richard Wolf.
Here.
Jason Marsh.
Here.
Anthony Dorsey.
Here.
Ashley Gaudiano.
Here.
Carl Massaro.
Here.
John Foreman.
Here.
Joe Pifko.
Here.
Scott Wick. Joy Cologne. Steve Lemoyne.
Here.
Kelly Malazzi. Tony Cinto. Kevin Shively.
Here.
And Nicole Satin.
Thank you. So we, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we are sitting 16 members this evening. We have a quorum. I'll entertain a motion from the council to approve our July minutes. Is there a motion?
I make the motion.
Thank you. Second. Any questions, amendments? All right, all in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Opposed, abstentions, minutes are approved. Before we go to public comment this evening, we do have a public hearing that we're going to conduct for the Town of Trumbull Community Block Grant COVID-19 Small Cities Grant Program CARES Act funding. The public notice was attached to our agenda, and although the council won't vote on that tonight, we are asked to conduct this public hearing. So I will call for anybody to speak to this grant. Ms. Baclar, did you want to say something about this grant?
Rena Baclar, Director of Economic and Community Development for the town. This is a required sort of closeout public hearing for the local meals program. Many of you will remember we applied for and received $200,000 in small cities HUD COVID funding. 9 of our restaurants took place in this program. $180,000 approximately of business went to our restaurants, so that economic activity was critical during the recovery from COVID. Also, 330 individual residents were served, and thousands of meals were served. The program won an award, actually, from the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. It is a model program that can be used in other kinds of disaster recovery efforts. Let's hope we don't have to, but it could be. There was some continued funding from ARPA that went to that, and I think that they did some additional work, but I'm only here to discuss the performance and the closeout with the HUD funding tonight. Should anybody have any questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baclar. Anybody else have a question or a comment? If not, then I will close that public hearing at 7:37, which started at 7:35. And we'll move on to public comment on our agenda this evening. Have the sign-in sheet. First person is Laurel Wilson. If you come up, please be sure to speak directly into the mic and give us your name and address, please.
Hello, Laurel Walsh, 5944 Main Street. Thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight. South Edgewood, 2016. Hardy Lane, 2020. Maine and Edgewood, 2024. I've heard this story before. We need a community center, or We need a senior center. Better yet, this strategic purchase aims to prevent the potential construction of a high-density development and gives the town council over future development of this property. Only one of these statements is true. We need a senior center, and Grace Church would be a fabulous location. Seniors deserve an exclusive stand-alone location. I'm confident that an appropriately sized senior center would not change the character of our neighborhood. Your plans to combine a community center and senior center and build a 2-story, 32,000 square foot center would be inappropriate for this land. What about the environmental impact, habitat destruction, and loss of green space? What happened to 1,000 trees for Trumbull? This initiative aims to plant 1,000 trees over 10 years to improve the water and air quality of the people and wildlife in Trumbull. The Maine and Edgewood community demands an environmental impact study. We also request an environmental impact statement. We demand both must be released to the public. Any new construction on these suspected wetlands will contribute to climate change. Let's do what's right and start being fiscally responsible. The town of Trumbull has spent approximately $10 million, maybe more, over the last 9 years on this project. Starting tonight, this project has the opportunity to be successful. So let's work together to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walsh. Wilson, excuse me. Walsh. Next speaker is Brian Walsh.
Hello. Good evening, council members. Brian Walsh, 5944 Main Street. 14 years ago, my wife Laurel and I became residents in Trumbull when we moved to our home at 5944 Main. We were young and excited to become adults in this beautiful town. We fell in love with the small town charm that embodies Trumbull. Driving down Main Street during the spring, when it's adorned with red flags and flowers in full bloom, is reminiscent of a Norman Rockwell painting in the Saturday Evening Post. This has been our piece of Americana each year. When we moved in, we bonded with the Grace Church Parish. To say they have been excellent neighbors is an understatement. While it was a small congregation, they were always warm and inviting to our family. The church has been a backdrop of life events from Memorial Day parades and parties to major weather events. We watched a few weddings and even preschool graduations occur in the gardens in front of the church. While we are sad to see the church dissolve, we understand that times change and that the economy fluctuates, leading to our current situation. While it might not appear that the neighbors of Grace Church neighborhood are happy about the purchase by the town, that is not entirely true. We respect the town for trying to avoid developers coming in and maximizing real estate profits while destroying the small town feel. We have gone on record on town meetings that this property would support a senior center with minimal impact to our community. As a group, we have even offered town officials to meet with the property to see the beauty of the neighborhood firsthand while we explain our concerns. Several members took us up on that. We appreciate their time for our concerns. Our group understands the urgency and the need for a new senior center, but vehemently opposes a massive community center on this property. The reality and purpose that we feel we have justified and pertinent concerns. Town officials tell us that we are too early and that they do not own the property yet. This is understandable, and we hear what you're saying. But when you say that, this makes us feel that our concerns are being invalidated. Each step in the process felt rushed to fit an already predetermined fate of this project. First Select Woman Tesoro had initially led us to believe that this would be a senior center that could also serve as a facility for town use in meetings or events. In a quote from her town news statement on July 30th, she stated, "This location will allow for expanded senior center use and will also meet with the needs of the community as a whole, including community meetings, classes, sports, and activities." The last part of that quote piques my interest. What kind of sports are you planning to put in this building? Are we talking about a gymnasium or a multi-sport use? The average size of a junior high gymnasium is 74 feet by 42 feet, or 3,108 square feet, according to courtdimensions.net. Are we just trying to transplant the Hardy Lane project onto this footprint? I guess we'll have to wait and see if the architects can blend this into the landscape. My wife and I experience firsthand the traffic flow on Main Street daily. Trying to turn left can take 5 minutes at a time. Main Street has seen increased traffic flow over the last decade and will continue to increase. I want to know what traffic study will be conducted and who will perform it. This must be conducted during the school year and include when school is being released, or kids are going to school also. I demand that the results be released to the public for review. Is it feasible to have a traffic light added to the entrance for the safety of the citizens? My final concern is the environmental impact this building will have on the neighborhood. This property abuts the Pequannock Rail Trail property. What will the impact be on this magnificent open space the town is privileged to enjoy? Will the wildlife that has resided in the woods behind the facility be displaced? Will water runoff create flooding conditions on the trail? The frequency of larger impact rain events from global warming has taken its toll on the trail already. What happens if we hardscape a bigger area of this property? I demand that the results of an environmental impact study be released to the citizens in the form of an environmental impact statement. We, the people of Grace Church neighborhood, demand that our voices be heard. We will not sit idly by while an intrusively sized building destroys our neighborhood with traffic congestion and environmental concerns as a real possibility. As I stated at the beginning, the town purchasing this property should be viewed as a positive. Mrs. Tesoro has given conflicting statements with her press brief. While stating the town is preventing a developer from building high-density housing on the property, but then plans to build a large-scale 7-days-a-week town-use property in its place. Neither of those ideas is right for keeping with the character of the neighborhood or the town of Trumbull. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Our next speaker is Chris Pettinelli. Pettinella.
Good evening. My name is Chris Pettinella, 69 Old Churchill Road. I'm speaking tonight once again in disbelief of the administration's disregard of ecosystems, small neighborhood, and blatant physical irresponsibility. The brutal damage 5958 Main Street will undergo is going to irreversibly alter the area's natural surroundings. This will lead to the destruction of ecosystems, natural landscapes that built up the Pequannock River Valley, and displacement of wildlife. Every property bought by this administration has been some of the worst areas for a community center to be developed. Small neighborhoods are being targeted. I'd like to familiarize you with Edgewood Avenue. It's a small residential neighborhood just north of the property bought by the town. These residents will be forced to stare at a massive facility and a parking lot. 5944 Main Street will be forced to live directly next to the center, bringing down property values. Same goes with 5937, 5953, 5969, 5976 Main Street, 3 Walker Road, and 3 to 30 Edgewood Avenue. To you, that might just seem like numbers. To the Trumbull community, those are families whose lives are built up around their biggest assets, their homes, and ultimately whose community will destroy their biggest assets. Financial considerations play a major role in this assessment. The construction and maintenance of a new community center entails substantial costs, including funding for a 32,000 square foot facility, staffing and ongoing operational expenses. For a town like Trumbull, which has many other pressing budgetary priorities, such as improving infrastructure, supporting local schools, specifically Hillcrest, a $402 million, over $402 million, $402,375,000 to be exact. Investing in a new facility will not be the most effective use of resources. Allocating funds to enhance or expand existing facilities, such as the church on the property, will deliver greater value. To clarify, I'm not against the senior center, like some people portray me to be. I'm strongly against a community center in a bad location, especially at this time due to increased building costs as well as record high inflation. It's time to be truthful about the building plans, unlike mendacious statements by the administration about Hardy Lane, another horrible building proposal. We've been looking at it for a long time and wanting to buy it for years. It seems everything finally lined up, our first selectwoman said, regarding, quote, protecting the land from development. The Trumbull community relies on you to protect them and make the right decisions based on facts presented, not on how your party leader wants you to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pettinella. Next speaker is Mark McKeel.
Good evening, Council. My name is Mark McKeel at 27 Edgewood Avenue in Trumbull. I'd like, if it's permissible by the Council, to just hand out some maps of the proposed the Grace Episcopal Church and how it impacts us, because like me, everybody may have pretty poor eyesight and not be able to see the current map we have. Is that allowed if I have enough copies for both sides?
Yes, however, I would, we have other speakers to speak and other presentations, so I'd ask you not to go on
I
too
will be
long.
very brief. I've never met Chris, but I loved what he said. I met him, but he talked about our neighborhood. I'm going to try and show you a little bit about our neighborhood. So this is a map of our neighborhood. The outlined area in red is the Grace Episcopal Church property. So as neighbors of the Grace Episcopal Church property, we're here again this evening as we attended the July 1st Town Council meeting, at which time we voiced our support and approval for the town to move forward with the purchase of the Grace property. We are here this evening when we realized an item on your agenda was an update from the Community Facilities Building Committee. And we hope that we, maybe me in particular, can provide some critical information to our town council representatives about our neighborhood. As you can see from this map, the property is truly an island in a residential neighborhood. I won't quote the numbers because people will challenge the numbers, but there are at least 45 abutting properties and 137 within 500 feet. So at the July 10th Community Facilities meeting, we spoke in the public comment period in anticipation of the abrupt full stop on Hardy Lane and a referral of the 6.4 acre church, Grace Church property as an alternative to the 25 acres on Hardy Lane. The first selectman brought to the committee the proposal to suspend any further evaluation of the Hardy Lane property. The committee, without an agenda item, voted unanimously to put the Hardy Lane property on hold and direct the architectural efforts for a combined community and senior development center at the Grace Episcopal Church property. At that meeting, at the July 10th meeting, at the end of the meeting, our District 6 Town Council representative and Community Facilities Building Committee member, Kelly Malozzi, acknowledged our neighbors' concerns, and she volunteered and asked if anyone else from the committee would want to meet with the neighbors. No other committee members took Representative Malozzi's offer. As neighbors, we took the offer. We asked Representative Malozzi if she would like to invite anyone. She left the invitation up to me, and we mutually agreed on a walk and talk of our neighborhood on Thursday, July 18th, starting at the church site. Attending with Representative Malozzi was District 6 Representative Steve Lemoyne, ZBA committee member Kim DeCorpo, and our 123rd District State Representative David Ritigliano, and about 30 neighbors. Thank you all for attending. We felt it was an informative meeting, and we would offer to do it again for the town council, the Community Facilities Building Committee, as well as any other town officials. Walking the property with the neighbors, in the neighbors' yards, should be an absolute requirement as part of the exploration for future property development. We would like a commitment to be made that a comprehensive traffic study, an independent traffic study, be scheduled during the weekday while school's in session, include start and dismissal, peak times, and include the neighboring side streets, including Edgewood Avenue, Walker Road, the Long Hill Village residents, Pinehurst, Briarcroft, as well as the entrance and exits to the Shell service station and the shopping plaza on Main Street. As a result of these studies, and the results of these studies be made part of the public record. We would also like a commitment that the area that is highly suspected of wetlands, which we identified. I'll find it in a second, and I promise I'll get off. Right there. At a minimum, we know there's wetlands there, and the surveyor who was on site the other day said that he also believed they were wetlands, and told Public Works Director Estrada that he flagged it and would bring it to the town's attention. So we'd like a commitment that that area is sampled and tested by an independent contractor. That's my guess at how big it is, having served 9 years on the Inland Wetland Commission. And lastly, we would like a permanent commitment, perhaps by deed of the property, that prohibits, as the first selectman statement reads, there are no plans for a trailhead at this time. We'd like to see that made permanent. Thank you very much for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. McKeel. Next speaker is Judy Faust.
Hi, that's Judy Flaws, Flaws, and I'm at 30 Edgewood Avenue. We are all here in support of the purchase of the property of the Grace Church. However, we are concerned about the probability of a community center on this site. We are aware that it may be too soon to discuss future plans. However, we feel that if we do not stay ahead, then one day we will go to the town website and find out that it's all been done. At that point, there'll be nothing left to say. So please take our concerns into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Next speaker is Richard White.
Good evening, Richard White, 169 Churchill Road. I'd like to speak about tonight's quarterly update from the Building Committee and Resolution TC 26-90 from a few years ago. I appreciated First Selectman Tesoro's comment in a recent statement about the Grace Church properties, quote, buffering, lighting, easements, and other matters impacting neighbors will all be worked on collaboratively as plans develop. However, what exactly is the mechanism for this collaboration? In my opinion, the most simple mechanism is to ensure collaboration is to repeal Chapter 2, Article 1, Section 2-4 of the Trumbull Municipal Code. I've reread the minutes from TC 2690 and understand Chairman Massaro's concerns from that time about not abdicating a town council authority. I hear what you're saying. The problem remains that it's the expertise of our planning and zoning, wetlands, historical society, and conservation commissions that are in the best position to address and help advise and mitigate any neighborhood concerns. The 824 hearing process is so watered down from the rigors that normal development would face that it's mostly irrelevant. A business or even a homeowner cannot demolish an existing structure, build a new structure, clear trees, pave a new parking lot without prior P&Z approval and oversight. Notification of neighbors, referral to wetlands and conservation, architectural changes are all triggered by existing planning and zoning regulations, which are sidestepped by the 824 hearing process. Short of actually repealing 824, please look for a way to make our various land use commissions, a required and formal part of any building committee process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. White. Next up is Diane, Craft? Lillicraft.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Diane Lillicraft, and my husband and I have lived at 10 Edgewood Avenue for just over 26 years. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight about our concerns with the property of 5958 Main Street, known as Grace Episcopal Church. We have heard from this town committee that we are too early in the process, yet we are not kept abreast of the decisions the town is making with the plans and proposal of the property after the town meetings, and it's moving extremely fast. We just found out through the note on the website that this was going to be a community center with sports activities after meetings or evening meetings and town use. What we initially were told was it was going to be just the senior center, which we desperately need for this town. And like my predecessor said, we all agreed to the town being purchased, the property being purchased by the town to do that, just the senior center. I spoke to Vicki Tesoro personally, and she said she would keep the town and the surrounding neighbors' best interest at hand during the process. Yet, as far as the neighborhood is concerned, we don't feel heard at this point. To our knowledge, there has not been traffic studies, environmental studies, and it's hard enough to get out onto the main street, as some of my friends have said. What will the town do to ensure there will not be bottlenecks of traffic after evening events or meetings? After our community raised concerns about not blasting in construction, the town said that all the buildings on the property will be demolished, and none of the existing will remain. So, I'm sorry, I'm going off because some of it was said by my neighbors. We just want transparency. We would like to know exactly what's going to happen, what is proposed before it goes to drawings. We know that the Hardy Lane property was already planned, developed, or schematics made, and yet it was dropped. We are essentially, like Mark said, an island of residents. We have worked hard for our homes. Our neighborhood takes pride in our properties. We have kept the integrity of the small town feel, and the side roads that all lead down Edgewood, Pinehurst, and Briarcroft are dead ends into the Pequannock River Valley. And we feel you're not hearing us about having that property expand to a large facility that may include basketball courts, which we don't know. We haven't seen any plans, of course. Pickleball courts, which would be basically in my backyard, like the rectory is now. Light noise, and it would displace animals that are becoming more and more scarce just because of what's going on in building. But when I first moved in, I had turkeys, deer, rabbits, fox, an occasional bear down on some Ring doorbells, and we're afraid that this is going to disrupt the neighborhood and our community. We are passionate about fighting this. If it does go to being a community center, which most of us, I think, agree the town of Trumbull has beautiful parks, beautiful areas for basketball, pickleball already set up, and we just need a senior center. Thank you for the time. I appreciate you listening and letting us be heard.
Thank you, Ms. Lillicraft. Next is Rome Lillicraft.
Hi, Rome Lillicraft, 10 Edgewood Avenue. That was a collaborative effort with my wife, so I actually just put my name under it because I figured I should have probably stood up here with her. But I'd like to add, I posted something on we have a Facebook page going of some sort, just the 3 streets in our neighborhood. And I posted comments about the Hardy Lane effort as a community center and senior center. And it was rather lengthy, and someone replied, I don't know who it was, not in our neighborhood, but someone replied, you could have saved us a lot of time. And she wrote, I understand NIMBY, N-I-M-B-Y. I didn't know what that meant. I stared at it. I even responded back, I don't understand what you meant. And then I looked at it and I understood. Not in my backyard. I could have saved a lot of time and just said, don't put this in our backyard. But to keep this short, I think every single one of you here would also feel the same way. If this was proposed and you had no idea what was going there. We've heard everything. From the beginning, it was just a senior center. I don't know, just to keep us calm, I think. And then it became somehow in a Zoom meeting in the last 3 minutes, it became and community center. Oh, I second the motion. I third the motion. We were already blocked out of the Zoom meeting. We couldn't say anything after that, and I was just like, what just happened here? That's when the community center was presented. So it had been talked about, but we weren't filled in on it. I just think, everyone here, everyone in the room, not in my backyard. Everyone cares what's in their backyard, and we just want to know what's going to be there. We want to be informed. And like everyone said before, we're not opposed to the senior center. We're just concerned about the question mark. What is a community center? And what kind of noise is going to come from there? What kind of loitering is going to be back there after hours, after dark? Is there going to be some kind of gate so people can't get in? They're going to get in anyway because it's a big space. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lillicraft. Next speaker is Liz Jones.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Liz Jones. I'm a resident of 9 Pinehurst Street. My husband and I, retired Lieutenant Doug Jones, have been in the house for 25 years. This is a really emotional thing for me. We've worked really hard to buy our property, to pay off our property, and now I feel like the value of my property is in question. The Grace Episcopal Church, although it's on Main Street, it is in a residential neighborhood. Please come and walk the backyards of Edgewood. This property is right on top of these homes. I'm sure a lot of you, your kids played rec basketball. My kids played every sport under the sun and went to every single rec game. Middlebrook School, Hillcrest, Madison. The parking lots were full. So what are we going to do when these parking lots are full and these people want to park on our side streets, which are walkable to this property? Long Hill residents have the lowest property values in the town. So why are we considering something like this? Trumbull prides itself on open spaces. This is not an open space. This is right in the middle of a residential neighborhood. It breaks my heart that we would even consider this. There are lots of open spaces in Trumbull, the Nature Center, Indian Ledge. If you can propose that a property like Grace Episcopal Church on Main Street can be a multi-use facility like a senior center and a community center, why can't you do that at the Nature Center, where there is lots of acreage, not on top of people's homes? Indian Ledge, lots of acreage. I can't count how many times I've been to those properties and hardly anybody's there. So why are we considering jamming a busy community center in the middle of a residential neighborhood? Because that's what it is. It's a residential neighborhood. It might have a commercial property address, but it's a residential neighborhood. I'm just going to close by saying, again, I'm heartbroken that we're considering this. I mean, literally, it's keeping us up at night. All these people here, it's keeping us up at night. We've worked hard. Would you want this in your backyard? Because literally, it's in our backyard. Again, I think our entire community agrees that a senior center would be acceptable, but not a multi-use building of a senior center and a community center. And also, I'd like to, again, reiterate that traffic studies need to be done As of right now, it takes me some mornings up to 8 minutes to make a left turn onto Main Street. I don't even want to think about what that will be if you put that community center there. Thank you, everybody, for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to an agenda item this evening? Come forward, sir. Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Paul McGarry, McGeary. I live at 53 Long Hill Place, and I am a member of the board of Long Hill Village, though I am not speaking for the village tonight. I'm just speaking as a neighbor. I think, to be clear, from my perspective, and again, I'm speaking only as a single citizen, the idea of building a senior center is very attractive. And I think we're realistic enough to realize that you're not going to spend millions of dollars for a building that's going to be open Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 2. So there needs to be, I think the town wants to get the advantage of a facility that people can use. What we are concerned about, I think, is the potential for traffic is one issue, but also for late night rowdyism and that kind of thing. I think that if we are involved, we the neighbors are involved in the planning process so that we can get for the town the most bang for its buck, but at the same time protect the investments of the neighbors and protect against late night goings on, I think is really what people's concern. I think that there is a way to do both, and I hope to be part of that process. And I think all of the neighbors here, what they're really saying tonight is, as plans are presented, as plans are evaluated, as plans are developed, we want to be in on that process so that we can call to people's attention things they might not know by virtue of the fact that they are not living in the neighborhood. That's really what we're looking for tonight. Obviously, it's too soon to start talking about dimensions of buildings and heights and weights and parking in any specific sense, but those are certainly the questions that have been raised tonight. I think are questions that need to be weighed moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGarry. Step forward. Please give us your name and address.
Hi, I'm Catherine Saris. I live at 601 White Plains Road. And I would just like to echo the thoughts that they have shared tonight. Everyone has been speaking about the traffic issues. And I would just like to say, as a member of this community living on White Plains Road, the traffic is intense. And it's really bad when school gets out. It's really bad in the mornings. There's certain times where it just takes forever, and it used to not be an issue like that. And I wish that traffic studies had been done before the Starbucks drive-through had been put in, or before some of the other proposals that are being put into Main Street were evaluated. So just wanted to be on the record for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Saris. Last call for public comment. All right, I will close public comment. I thank you all for coming out, speaking your minds, and bringing issues to our attention, as well as the building committee's attention. We'll hear from the building committee shortly. Our first discussion item is on the annual pension. We have Mr. Patrick Clark with us. So I'll ask you to come up, Mr. Clark, and give us a report.
Hi, good evening. I'm presenting the annual letter for the Pension Board's activities for the year 2023, which is included in your agenda. Byrne Wealth Consulting continues to provide the Pension Board with investment advice, as it has since 2017. Net cash flows for the pension for calendar year 2023 were negative. But of note, it was due primarily to a timing issue as far as town contributions coming in after the conclusion of the year. Up until that point, the cash flows had been positive. The good news is for 2023, the fund returned 13.57%, which compares to the median returns for other pensions of 16.79%. The funded ratio, based on the last actuarial report, was 48%, and has continued to improve since 2014, when it was 35%. The next actuarial report is in the process of being worked on this year, so hopefully we'll get some good news and maybe cross over the 50% threshold. We continue to receive flash reports from Byrne related to how our investments are performing, as well as following our governance calendar to when it comes to scheduling our meetings. We do have an investment policy statement which we review annually at the beginning of each year. This year we declined to make any changes to the investment policy statement. Some additional summaries as far as the returns for the pension. Again, for 2023 it was 13.57%. This was higher than the assumed rate of return for the pension of 7.25%. The 3 and 5 year returns were 3.47 and 7.75%, respectively. The next page is additional summary of returns over the past 5 years, going back to 2019. As you can see, 2022 was obviously a challenging year, so it was good to see the returns, the markets have positive return for 2023. Each quarter, again, we meet with Byrne to review how our managers are performing and whether there needs to be any changes to the pension plan at this time. In the actuarial summary, again, this was as of July 1, 2022. Hopefully, again, we'll have the new details soon on the report. Of note, again, the funded ratio was 48%. The pension board continues to meet quarterly, and we do have specialized meetings to address issues that may come up. We do follow a governance schedule, which is detailing on the letter as well. Some things that we do review are investment review, administrative fees, policy review, the market environment, legislative impact if needed. There were no changes to the composition of the pension board for 2023. And before I conclude, I would just like to thank all of the board members for their assistance and help over the year. It is an enjoyable board to work for, and we all pull together and work for the benefit of the town.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, and thank you for that report. I'll ask council members if they have any questions or comments on the report. Mr. Sintel?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
What if, or is there any interest rate pressures on the pensions?
Well, the interest rates would impact how, for instance, interest rates impact the overall market. I think we're seeing that certainly today. If you're turned on the news at 6:30 today, you saw that the market was down 1,000 points on the Dow. And this was due in large part to growing concerns that the Fed is now behind the curve, that they should have been lowering rates sooner rather than later. So that certainly impacts stock market performance. As far as individual investments, specifically, it has an impact on fixed income bond returns. And so lower interest rates will certainly help the performance of the bond component of the portfolio. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It will have some positive impacts and some negative impacts. But I like to look at how interest rate policy impacts the markets as a whole. And right now, there's a great degree of uncertainty about what the Fed should be doing over the next several weeks.
Follow-up? Go ahead.
Yeah, have you guys started to talk about the new pension plan that was started with the police? Oh, that's the police is separate. You're the town
We
pension.
do not do with it, just
I
the
forgot.
town.
I
Yep.
forgot.
Yep.
Thanks, sorry about that.
Sure.
I forgot you guys are just the town side.
Yes.
Sorry.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming in the middle of the summer. Our next discussion item is an update from the Community Facilities Building Committee. Chairman Lori Hayes O'Brien will deliver that for us.
Good evening. Hope everyone weathered the storm from this crazy weekend. And now we'll be weathering this one, it seems, a little bit. I don't think I'm probably the most popular person in the room right now, but as time moves forward, I hope we can have more discussions, and I'm hoping some of this report will alleviate some of the concerns that have been brought up tonight. As usual, I'm going to give you an update of what has happened since the last time we were here, and hopefully some next steps. So I'll just go over some notes and then obviously take any questions, and if there's anything specific you'd like me to answer to that's been brought up tonight. So since our last update, we've met 5 times. As you know, at that time, the committee had accepted the Hardy Lane feasibility study final report that we brought to you guys, I believe, in December. In January, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted favorably for an 824 referral for the Hardy Lane site, and the committee then requested that the architects move forward with a schematic design development, which would provide much more detailed information regarding the building and the site work. In April, the town, with input from the committee and in response to public comments, developed a frequently asked Q&A document to inform the public and clear up some misconceptions about the project thus far. That document is on the town website as well. We also held an information session to a packed house at the Senior Center in April that included a presentation from the architects with opportunities for questions to be answered and suggestions made. A Zoom meeting in June updated the committee on the progress of the architect's work to date, including information provided by the landscape architect. It's my understanding that the schematic design phase for Hardy Lane is completed or very close to completion, and documentation will be available at our August meeting for that. Then came July, and a little bit of a change in direction. As you're all aware, with the approval of the purchase of the Grace Church property on Main Street, came a request from the First Selectman for our committee to explore that site as a possible location for the senior and community center, and to suspend any further evaluation of Hardy Lane at this time. At our July meeting, the committee voted unanimously to do so and to request Q&A and architecture to explore the feasibility of that project, or that property. The architects are currently developing a proposal for that feasibility study, and will be meeting with us at our meeting next week to begin discussions. I want to stress begin. It's important to note that if this property had been on the initial site selection that we started years and years and years ago, it would have checked off a lot of the, scored probably highly based on the criteria that we had developed. Although we certainly wish that this option had come up sooner, so we could have discussed it earlier, we believe it's our responsibility to explore it now. So next steps. We'll be meeting with the architects next week, starting next week, to just begin evaluating the potential of the site for this project. We have not met with the architects. Our July meeting was just to accept that we would at least look into it and ask the architects too. So we have not had any meetings with the architect to date based on the Grace Church property. For them to be able to evaluate it, there are a number of things that have been done. Some of that have been mentioned tonight. The layout, and I want to stress the layout and the building itself, and I will say this again, but the components in the building have been, since the beginning, components of a senior center, including a small gym. Anything that we've looked at for the building thus far, sounds perhaps one small meeting room for community use is all senior center use. And I think the gentleman before me brought up about the ability to have a empty building for times that the senior center is not in use is not something that's probably very fiscally responsible for the town. We've worked from that premise from the beginning, and will continue to, no matter which direction this ends up going. Any necessary studies, including a traffic study during school hours, will be required. Environmental factors will also be considered with all those requirements that come as part of any building project. You guys have seen us do this with Hardy Lane. If this should move forward with the Grace property, those same studies are required and necessary. Should we proceed at this site, our hope is to use as much of the work already done on this project for the last very many years as possible, specifically in regard to the building itself. The site work will obviously be different. Once the architects are more versed in this site, we'll plan on conducting a public information session, particularly with the abutters and neighbors. Our committee meetings are typically held on the second Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. and are always open to the public. In conclusion, I'll just say, as the resolution that created this committee states many years ago, our purpose and responsibility is to create an up-to-date, useful, and cost-effective space for a senior and community center that can meet the needs of our senior population and better serve our community. That's the job we were given and what we're trying to move forward with. It's our job as a committee, as I always say, is to recommend the what and the where. It will be up to this body of elected leaders, as well as the people of Trumbull, to decide the if and the when. We would again encourage all of you to truly understand the state of the current senior center at Priscilla Place and its uses. It's inspiring to see what the staff has done in a building that's not suitable anymore. I want to thank my committee members. There's a couple here, Ron Feligno and Dave Galler here. A lot of people are away, as we're seeing here as well. The numerous town employees and the architecture firm of QA&M for their dedication, patience, and perseverance. That was my quick talking. I'm ready for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes O'Brien. Ms. Scottiano, you can have the first question.
Thank you so much. Lori, thank you as always for the update. Thank you to the members of the neighborhood who came out this evening. I just had two quick questions. So first, in the current plans that have been drawn up for Hardy Lane, in any of the exploratory work you've done over the last
forever
8 years, 10 years at this point?
I wasn't a senior then, I am now.
Have you considered exterior recreation, right? So the exterior pickleball courts, exterior basketball courts.
There's never been plans that have included that. There's been talk about, at the Hardy Lane site, there was a upper level kind of patio. With no idea what that will look like moving forward, although I think the slope of this site kind of may take away from that. I know there's been talk about being able to touch him with some gardens and green space long ago through Mr. Paris, and other than that, we have not really ever considered outside recreation.
Okay, and then as far as you know, right, and I believe this is the case, at the current senior center, what does the interior recreation look like there? Because I know a lot of people haven't been there or been there recently. So can you just tell us what the interior recreation opportunities are in the current senior center?
So that's probably one of their biggest challenges, because the current recreational area is actually what they call their multi-purpose space. Right. So basically, you need to move out aerobics if you want to have put some pickleball lines along the way. Anybody that's been there, and I invite people to go, I say this over and over, it's so eye-opening. It is not conducive at all. It's purposely not conducive to seniors. The acoustics are horrendous. So they really make do with that one space that they have to kind of reprogram things to be able to work out that space. Hence, that was the reason initially that we've always wanted to include some sort of gymnasium. Not a full-size gymnasium by any way, but the gymnasium is, because pickleball is really one of the most used, most popular things at the senior center, and it's really interfered with their programming to be able to do that. So, but that is indoor we're discussing.
Right, and we're not talking like multiple gyms, multiple basketball courts, a huge pickleball facility that will be equivalent to what we see outdoors on the weekends at some of the parks and stuff, right?
I don't think there's any place in Trumbull that we would have the space for that, and certainly not anything that we've developed.
In sports, maybe.
Yes, and we're not
doing
that.
in sports, right? And then you referenced reports that will be done, traffic study, environmental study, a lot of the things that residents brought up this evening. Where will those reports be available once they're completed?
So those are always available through our minutes on our website. We can attach them in any way they can. We've always brought them here as well as part of the feasibility study final report. But I would ask people to continue to watch the meetings as those come up. We are away from that, a while away from that, as the architects haven't even really had a stab at this yet. But those will always be part of those reports we have to contract for, and then those reports are part of our record all the time.
So maybe we can find a way to put them somewhere on
More-
the FAQ document or
Mhm.
somewhere so that you don't have to go through minutes to
Yes.
find them, but they
Yes.
are public information.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And I'm also going to stress second Wednesday of the month is when we typically meet. Sometimes that has to change depending on a quorum, but that's a good time to always check in to see where we're at with the program.
Okay, and if people want to make public comment at those meetings or meet with the committee, are you all open and willing to do that in some forum?
Yes, and I think I said in here, I mean, I think it's important, in a brief conversation I had with the architect, is that they become versed in it so that we have a meeting and can answer some of the questions that are being brought up. So I think we're looking at that at the end of September, ideally, if the architects can move along with that. I asked for it sooner rather than later. I know the committee is totally open to that. We've discussed that, and it's important.
Okay, thanks, Lori.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you. Mr. Pivko.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lori, I have a quick question for you. On an average day, what is the general attendance in the community, in the senior center right now?
I wish I had that document in front of me, but and I can get that to you to be more accurate. I know different days vary and different times vary. Right now, they start to empty out soon after lunch, is my understanding. I know it depends. It really depends on programming, but I'd rather get that to you from Michelle specifically now. Kind of post-COVID, things went up a little bit. Also, the age of senior center. To be a member of the senior center is 55, so I believe it's grown because of that. People, I'm going to say pickleball again. I try not to say it so much, but you remember from the old day, Joe, that's a popular word. So I think there's times depending on programming, but I can gladly get that to you from Michelle.
Okay. The reason I ask it, believe it or not, I am a senior and I belong to the senior center. I know it's hard to believe.
Hard to believe.
But the days I've been there, if I have seen 20 or 30 people, that's a lot.
It is on some days, yes.
I
Yes.
see that many in the checkout line at Stop and Shop across the street at any hour of the day.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, am I missing something with the volume of people?
No, and I know it's concerning. I think when you hear, especially, I think I want to reiterate the definition of a community center too, and I hope I was a little clearer about that. That we don't anticipate an in-sports kind of center, et cetera. So, and yes, we have an active senior center, and they have great programming. But the way it's kind of spaced out, typically, whenever I've been in there, if I see 20 to 30 people, I said certain activities will bring more, and there are bigger programs. They've had certain speakers come in or things like that where you can anticipate more, which why parking can sometimes be difficult there with their limited spaces. But generally, it's kind of spread out in a way that the flow is very low. You're right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Shively.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Kevin.
So I just want to clarify, just to reiterate, nothing has changed in terms of what we've all been talking about for all this time about primarily being a senior center, right? But also offering some community programming and opportunities, primarily outside of the prime time that it's being used as specifically a senior center, and nothing has changed about that plan, right?
That has always been my understanding of it, that there are some needs the community has. And I think, when people hear a lot of what was listed as far as some of the needs, meeting space is really difficult.
It's a big problem.
It's really
It's a big
difficult. I will
problem.
tell you, on my other committee, we have to meet at 8 o'clock in the morning in the EMS building. It's so inappropriate that there's 30 people in there on 8 o'clock in the morning. Those are the kind of things, when we first even started this project years ago, that came to light as a community needs. There's definitely some recreation things that could be used in a small scale. I think when we had talked about this project, maybe including a pool at some point. Those numbers, sorry, Jason, you're okay.
I was disappointed
okay.
when that went away too, by the way.
And I won't even
No, I
touch
know.
that. That's not my thing. But I think there was a valid concern about large numbers of people at a
Right, the
similar
pool's still
time.
not happening.
No,
Right.
no,
Okay.
no. And so I think it I don't want to say, and you know what? A new building that has opportunities, yes, the town should be using it for what it needs. I don't see big increases in the needs of, now we're not hiring more staff, we're not creating 1,000 more programs. Should things change down the line, then that will be town decisions. But based on what we've been talking about forever now and where we're at now, it is basically the same concept.
And then finally, one last thing. So just at the stage where we are right now, you have not met specifically with the architects about fitting this building as previously designed onto this property. So
Yep.
we don't even know yet whether this existing plan can still
Exactly.
be used on this property
Exactly.
at this point, right?
No, we just asked them after our last meeting to start to look at that, and we still have, they have to come up with a proposal for that, but it'll take some general ideas. I will say, I can speak for the committee that, these components that we've looked at this building, we've been looking at for a long time and studied for a long time of why they're important. So we really want to include very much of what that building had in it. How that's configured, we have no idea yet.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Winchell?
Hi.
Hi.
Is your meeting Zoom? And if it is not, where do you meet?
We meet here.
Okay.
We Zoom when people can't get there, like I was at the beach at our last Zoom meeting, but that's okay. But we typically meet in this room.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Say so, stream live.
Does it stream? You guys are you're ahead of me on that, but sure. And they are all recorded and have been. They're on for TCTV.
At least gets recorded at the
Yes,
very
all the
least, right?
time, all the time.
Ms. Sather?
Hi, Lori. So, what town offices are in the current senior center? And would the plans include, aren't there departments that are...
The social services, so I'm referring to Michelle Jacob, who is our
Right.
Director of Social Services, who also really oversees the senior center.
Mhm.
There's also Ronnie, and I always forget her last name, who really looks at the programming of the senior center more specifically, but social services is run out of there.
Okay, so and the plan is to move them too?
Yes,
Right.
yes. Yeah, there's office space for what's currently there.
And so they maintain normal business hours of the government?
Mm-hmm.
Just making sure.
Yes. There is, I know, we'll tell you from our last one, there is a small office that will probably be more where the gym is for a recreation employee, just to oversee anything there if the senior directors aren't there.
Okay. And my other question is, so you're meeting with the architect on
August
the
14th.
14th.
Mhm.
Yep. They will be here?
Yes.
Okay. And I know that obviously the traffic is the biggest concern.
Mm-hmm.
So are those questions that the community is going to have about obviously school's not in session in August.
Right.
When does school start?
End of August.
End of August?
Before Labor Day. Yes.
So so sometime in I would say the teeth of the school year, October, November, when the traffic is the heaviest. And not for nothing also, as much as we want to also think about not just school in session, but also
rush hour.
Yeah, rush hour and athletic events that go with the building. Traffic's sort of amazing. So I think that's probably the major concern, and that those questions about when the traffic study is going to be happening need to be those need to be answered in that meeting on that. They should have that answer.
So what little to a lot I know about traffic studies, going through a couple of them now, is it is a very specific formula that we will hire a traffic study person to do that. That's a very specific kind of thing, and all of those are factors. If you have any questions about the traffic study, you can pull up our last one from Hardy Lane. I know there's been ones all along with everything you guys have ever done. So it's a really specific peak times. They usually compare it to a similar kind of facility someplace else, and come up with these kind of mathematical formula of what the traffic report will do. But it is absolutely our intention to direct. We can kind of give some direction. It will be during peak hours, during rush hours, and during school time specifically.
Okay, Mr. Lemoyne, please.
Hi, Lori.
Hello.
Can you tell us if part of the suitability study the architects will be doing will include looking at the existing buildings and seeing if they'll be suitable for use?
I can't tell you exactly what they'll do. As I said, we haven't met with them.
Is that a question you could ask them?
Yeah, I think that's always going to be part of our initial conversations anyhow. I don't even want to opine because I think we should wait until after we talk with them. But I will say that the current senior center is a 20,000 square foot building that isn't quite big enough for the senior center needs. And that's kind of a baseline, a minimum baseline that we kind of have to go up from. So that kind of speaks to it. And I always go back to our initial resolution, which is cost effective, up to date, and efficient spaces. So all those have to be factors in that decision. But I'm sure that the architects will speak to that, and we can certainly ask them on Wednesday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Isaacs?
Just to the traffic. The senior center is open 9 to 4, but program is typically 10 to 2:30ish. So it's not going to hit those school hours for the, when the kids are be going to school for the bus lines. And if I remember, I think it was 100 to 150 people in the programming during the day, but that was a while ago.
Over
yes, over the
6
day.
to
It
8
depends
hours,
if it's, if it's oil painting, it's going to be packed at that time. If it's line dancing, if there's teas, so it does, it does depend what's going on. But the time frame is off of the school, bus route at least, so as a help.
And I think what we've stressed in when we were discussing Hardy Lane is that the town is going to control the programming, right? Whether it's recreation programming or senior center programming. And I think there's got to be some flexibility between different programs for that to accommodate as best we can, no matter where it is.
Okay, Ms. Gaudiano, follow up.
I just have one last thing, which I'm only doing because we have a full group here. There was a note made by somebody in public comment about Hillcrest being a $402 million project, and I just wanted it on the record with everybody here. Based off of resolution item number 7, it is $142,375,000 bond, which is still a huge figure, but it is not $402 million. And I just wanted to make note of that while everyone was here.
Well, and while we're talking about it, it's what's the number? 142 less 44%.
Correct.
So with the reimbursement.
So not to go off.
All right,
Just to make sure
let's not get ahead of ourselves now. All right, I have a few questions. I want to just go back to Hardy Lane for a moment.
Okay.
The two questions that were hanging out there back in January was a full traffic study and environmental studies. So with respect to the environmental studies, are they fully completed and
For Hardy Lane?
for Hardy Lane? Yeah.
Yeah, those were. The traffic study, I believe at that point, had been completed and was in the feasibility study, and the Phase 2 environmental was as well.
I know there was a traffic study part of the feasibility study, but I don't think that was the police commission study that's required under the building committee rules.
So my understanding, and I look over to Mr. Shopik, but the police are the traffic authorities, and they ultimately have the say, but they don't conduct their own study. I think they take that study as informational and their own knowledge to move forward with that.
Well, if they haven't passed on it, then we haven't met the building committee rule. So that needs to take place if we're going to consider Hardy Lane at all.
Okay.
So the environmental part of it. The other question about Hardy Lane I have is the plans as they exist. Short of coming to the council with the schematics for final approval, is that all that you have left to do at that site?
At the time, and I hope I say this right, but my understanding was that schematic design would bring hopefully enough information for this council and the Board of Finance to potentially put a referendum question on. Obviously, we are not talking about that right now, and certainly not talking about a November referendum, but that it would give enough information to create that question that needed to be put on the ballot, and then obviously more work to be done after that.
Yeah, so the council has to approve quite a number of things before we even get to the referendum question. I'm a little disappointed we're behind schedule because I prefer to have that referendum question on the November ballot as well as the Hillcrest one. So, until the council approves a site, the plans, and which includes all of the various studies, we don't get near the referendum question. So let me go back to a couple questions on the existing senior center. You said it's 20,000 square feet?
It's a little over 20,000 square feet.
A little over
yeah.
20. So the current building that's proposed is up to 32,000, but only one community meeting room, so the rest is like a 50% increase
No, so it's
in
not
seniors'
just
use?
No, it's not just one community meeting. I'm saying in addition to what wouldn't be used by seniors, and they may use that, but we had said if they're so there's other meeting spaces in there that the seniors use for other things. So we look at it as a multi-use building because of that. I would say the biggest increase is a gym, which is much needed, and then some of the other spaces that have not proven to be large enough for the programming. So I don't have the design in front of me because that will be a different conversation should we move forward with Grace Church. But the biggest, I would say the significant increase is the gym.
Okay. Cost, the number out there was about 25 million. I'm assuming you haven't developed any other analysis for that.
That was not going to come until the schematic design was in place and cost would be associated with that. So they may give us a number when when we get the schematic design on Wednesday, but it may be at this point all for naught given the potential pivot that we're taking.
All right. I certainly trust that you and your committee are going to take into account all of the concerns of the neighborhoods, whether it be Hardy Lane or Main Street, Edgewood, or anywhere else in town. So we look forward to more public input as you meet on the 14th. My thought is that maybe you come back with the architect at our September meeting so that we can get a better handle and a faster track on what we do or don't do with the Grace Church property.
Okay. So September might be feasible. In my brief conversation with them, it may be a little more time before they should have some more concrete. So I don't know if the beginning of September will that's a month away with one meeting with us. But if October is doable, I think that's a reasonable thing. They can come back in September. I'm just not sure you'll get as much information as.
Yeah. Well, let me know.
Okay, I will.
We'll figure it out.
I will.
But we would like to, move it along if we can.
Yes. I mean, like I said, a lot of the work has been done, and now it's really, like I said, meeting with the neighbors, understanding this neighborhood, this site, what's on there, where the space is. Other than really walking it, we haven't really dug our teeth into it yet, just because this is new.
Understood. Any other questions, Ms. O'Brien? All right. Thank you for your time. Enjoy.
Thank you, everyone.
The last month of the summer. So.
Yay.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out on this topic as well. We will move to our resolutions now. Item 1 is Resolution TC 30-70. Mr. Foreman, would you move this to the floor, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Resolution TC 30-70, be it resolved that the Trumbull Town Council authorizes Vicky A. Tesoro, First Selectman, as the individual authorized to submit the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, SLFRF, part of the American Rescue Plan, ARPA, grant application for the Community Gardens project, and to sign all subsequent contracts, amendments, reports, and related documents in order to administer and implement the project. Full resolution attached.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Committee report, Mr. Pifko, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Economic and Community Development Director Rena Bacalar explained that they have been awarded an $80,000 grant, but still must submit a full application, which is due Thursday. This project is for an ADA accessible raised bed community garden installed at the senior center. The beds are transportable. If at some time things change here, the surface around the beds can be compacted product that allows for wheelchair accessibility. Initially, they asked for $100,000 and got $80,000 of that. In addition to the 2 physical gardens, the Parks and Rec Department and the Senior Center staff are going to be doing workshops that are relevant to gardening. They'll do at least 6 workshops related to the community garden as part of the project. There was no match required. Emergency legislation was requested. Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Pifko. Ms. Bacalar, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to clarify, so we're proposing, I did submit the application on Thursday, just so folks know. So from the committee meeting to the submission, we reworked a few things, minor things, but good things. One, we will be able to make the existing community garden fully accessible because we're going to put sidewalking, concrete sidewalking between all of the gardens, and then we're going to do the raised bed garden. Folks can see this, I'm sorry, but we're going to do the raised bed garden to the side. So now, when I reported last, that would only be partially accessible. That one, it'll be a fully accessible garden for everyone in the garden, and it will have the expanded raised bed section. At the existing senior center, we're going to have a fully accessible, smaller community garden for folks that do it as a program at the senior center. We thought we were going to get to do like 12 to 15 beds, but it's really 10 because money. We didn't get the full 100,000, so we had to chip a little things back here and there. But it's still going to be a wonderful setting, fully accessible. We're going to expand the water access at the existing community garden, and there'll be water access at the senior center. So I just want to compliment my colleague, Dimitri. Everybody's got a lot to do, but he did spend a lot of time with me to refine this application. He did a great job. Michael Murray, who is a community member, who's an existing community gardener, who brought the need for more accessibility to my attention and gave us some input on the application, as did some other community gardeners, and Michelle at the senior center for really being rich on the program side. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. So I do, just from timing perspective, we are going to start, well, as long as I get my contract back, we're going to start prep work right after the planting season to clear those areas. Some of that will be done over the winter, and then all the beds will be, and Dimitri said it's a good project for the staff. In the winter, they can build the beds, because they have to be assembled, and they'll be installed so that in May, this should be fully operational in both places. So that's all I have on the community garden.
Thank you. Questions? Ms. Isaac?
Now that I think about accessibility all the time, is there parking at the top to get to those raised beds for wheelchair, or do you have to go up? I know they made the new path to go up.
So if you go, are you talking about which?
At Abraham Nichols, because I believe
So
there's a
if
gate
you
in
come
the back.
in, yep, you have to pull your car in through that gate on Shelton Road, and you just drive right into the garden. You can pull right up. And then what will happen now, you park right there, you just go right onto a sidewalk. So it'll be ramped sidewalk, ADA, move around, 4 feet between each bed so anybody can go. And then we have 2 different heights of the beds because depending on mobility issues, some want it higher, but then when the plant grows, it's way up, so that might not be good. So then we have the lower ones. Beds are about 4 by 4, so they're a little bit smaller because one of the complaints was like people didn't want necessarily all the bigger beds. So if they want more space, they could take 2 if it's available, but they're more manageable beds.
Any other questions or comments? If not, a call for a vote. All in favor on resolution TC 30-70, please raise your hands. Thank you. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Is there a motion for emergency legislation?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Raise your hands.
Thank you.
Opposed? Abstention? Thank you. Passes as well. Let's go to resolution TC 30-71. Mr. Shively, would you bring that to the floor, please?
Certainly. Resolution TC 30-71, be it resolved that the Trumbull Town Council authorizes the submission of the funding application for the Emergency Operations Center Command Trailer Improvements and Training under the Emergency Management Performance Grant Pool Fund and identifies Vicky A. Tesoro, First Selectman, as the individual authorized to sign the application and all subsequent amendments, reports, and related documents in order to administer and implement the project. Full resolution attached.
Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Committee report, Mr. Pifko, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Megan Murphy, Fire Marshal, Emergency Management Director, explained this is a non-matching grant. Basically, it is $25,000 of free money to the town. Every community is eligible to apply for the grant. Some communities do not participate, so the state has swept the money into a pool and has set up this full funding grant. It can be used for training and EOC improvements. The trailer is a backup EOC and are looking to purchase equipment that can be moved between the primary EOC at TPD and be used at the command trailer if necessary. As far as training, they are looking to send herself and the Deputy Emergency Management Director to the National Hurricane Conference that occurs every year. $5,000 to $25,000 grant is permissible to put towards training. Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Pifko. Any questions or discussion? Megan Murphy is with us this evening.
Hello.
You've been busy lately.
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit. Happy to report, though,
Yes.
we're down to 172 people without power from over 4,000.
That's
We're
pretty
getting
good
there.
in 48 hours. Good
We're
job.
getting there.
Good job. If there's no questions on this resolution, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of Resolution TC 30-71, raise your hands. Thank you. Anyone opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Do we need emergency legislation on
If
this?
possible, please.
Yes. Okay. Do we have a motion
Make a
to make
motion.
this? Okay, moved by Ms. Lenzen, second, Ms. Guadiano. All in favor, please raise your hands. Anybody opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that is done. Thank you very much. I'd like to entertain a motion to take item 6 out of order.
Mr. Chairman, if I could interrupt for 1 second.
Certainly.
While Megan is
Good
still
evening.
here. I just wanted to make sure that I thank publicly and that you all hear the work that our Public Works Department, our Parks Department, our Emergency Management Department, our police did over the last few days for the town, working around the clock to restore power and to clean up a lot of the damage that was that we incurred around town. I know you all saw it. Some of you lived through it. It was horrendous, but we have great people that work for this town, and I just want to thank them publicly.
Thank you. You know, we all had our experiences with that, and you know, within a stone's throw of my house, there were 3 telephone poles that came down. And Ms. Katsky knows well what happened in our neighborhood, and we were all trapped in there for a little while. But about 7 o'clock this morning, the UI trucks were there pulling out the stumps and putting in the new ones today. And it's a weird thing the way power grids are in this town, but you know, I'm on one grid, my neighbors behind me are on another grid, and you know, I see the light a lot earlier than they do, for whatever the reason. But I do want to commend the utility companies as well. They have a thankless, very difficult and dangerous job to get the power back up. All right, so let's see. We have the motion to take item 6, which is Resolution TC 30-66 out of order.
So
We've
moved.
moved it, seconded, and we all in favor? Yes? Okay. All right, let's move that to the floor. Ms. Winchell, could you do that, please?
Sure. Resolution TC 30-66, be it resolved that a certain 5-year lease between Trumbull Center LLC as landlord and the town of Trumbull as tenant for the premises described in the following: Unit 10, approximately 1,600 square feet, second floor, 2 Daniels Farm Road, Trumbull, Connecticut, is hereby approved. It should be further resolved that Vicky A. Tesoro, the First Selectman is authorized to execute the lease on behalf of the town. And be it further resolved that a condition of this approval of the Board of Education shall assume the responsibility of making all rental payments provided for in said lease.
Second.
Thank you. Committee report, Mr. Pefko.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. The LA Committee entered into executive session at 7:41 with the following people present. LA Committee members Joseph Pifko, Mike Buswell, Veronica Lenson, Jason Marsh, Tony Cinto, Nikki Staton, First Selectman Vicky Tesoro, Chief Administrative Officer Cynthia Katsky, Town Attorney Daniel Shopik, Town Council Chairman Carl Massaro, Superintendent of Schools Dr. Martin Semmel, Special Education Coordinator Barbara Beeman, and Economic and Community Development Director Rena Bacalar. The motion was carried unanimously, and we exited executive session at 7:57.
Thank you, Mr. Pefko. We have Mr. Catalano with us this evening, who's overseeing these lease sites.
Yeah, good evening. I'm happy to, we're happy about the prospect of expanding our elite next chapter book space with the 1,600 additional square feet. And the main reason for this space is to actualize really the programmatic implications for transitional special education. So we were looking to build it out to include a functional kitchen, washer, dryer, to have an instructional space in the middle of the next chapter Bex Elite Academy is what we're calling it. And also a private space to hold PPTs, which we don't have currently. So I'm really excited for this opportunity, and I want to thank the LNA committee for helping us work through some of the language with the lease. And I'm happy to entertain any questions as well.
Any questions from the council? I think we've worked this over for 6 weeks or so. Looks like it's in final form. Attorney Shopik, thanks for your assistance on looking this over for the Board of Ed as well. Ms. Isaac?
Sorry, since I was in executive session. I know that Rena was looking at the grant funds for the 125. I'm not sure when that's going to be found out, but you did already receive the 25,000, which you put in for separately, and then from the Board of Ed meeting, and then you're going to be using IDA grants to fund as well.
That's correct. Yeah.
So if the 125 doesn't, and I'm not sure how much in the IDA, it was like 400,000 that was left, but I know it's a 1 year and then it's a 2 year expansion, so kind of complicated. Is that thought process going to be whatever you get in grant funding will go against whatever the lease cost is going to be and the expenses that are put in, and the rest coming from IDA if possible? Or is this going to have to be, as Elite is now, and be put in as a line item?
Yeah, I think that the intent was to utilize IDA funds. There was a $25,000 entitlement grant that you alluded to that we were going to use to build out the space, some of the more high-priced items like the flooring, maybe some appliances and cabinets. There was that $125,000 grant opportunity, which was based on per student, that I think that's currently, I know you want to, sorry. She looks like she wants to get up and speak, so
So folks know where it is.
So she can go home.
Look, we submitted a draft proposal. When we met with Joe Carbone, the President and Chief Operating Officer of the Workplace Inc. in Bridgeport for the region, he assured us he's going to work with us on this project. He said, put something in preliminarily because the RFQ hasn't come out there's an actual process for these funds. And he said, send that out to me. We did. Probably about 3 weeks ago. We followed up yesterday. We did a follow-up, so we're waiting to hear back, get some guidance from him. I believe there's going to be a resource to this program from that grant source. He's all but guaranteed us something. I just don't know exactly how much yet and when it's going to hit, but these dollars are available for this purpose. Not just to us, but to others in the region, and we just haven't taken advantage of these dollars because we haven't had such a program as this gentleman's explaining. So this is our opportunity to do career credentialing for the students. So I think one of the first ones we're going to work on is the customer service skills retail certification, which is a nationally recognized certification that students can get, and it can work toward their resume when they start to go get jobs and stuff. And then we'll add others over time, right?
Yeah, perfect.
And then just last thing, for staffing, what would the increase in staffing be? Would it be part-time? Are there going to be more pairs as well?
Yep, there would be no increase in staffing that we could foresee. Like right now, the staffing is really contingent on the number of students and their needs.
And that's going down?
Right, it's kind of, it ebbs and
Yeah.
flows typically. But, you know, whether it's 1 student, 5 students, or 50 students, we want to give that, however many students, that robust education. So, but right now, there's no staffing changes that would be for next year. You're welcome.
Mr. Wick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question, the resolution is conditioned on the Board of Ed assuming responsibility for rental payments. The question is, has the Board of Ed already assumed that? And if they have, what form has that assumption taken?
I guess I'll answer that. We presently have an MOU in effect with regard to the neighboring store where the Elite program is, and we've had discussions already about extending that MOU to include this entire piece. So the Board of Education, under that MOU, a memorandum of understanding, Board of Education has assumed all the expense of the lease.
So for that MOU, then, in your opinion, the town is protected from this additional rent expense on the 1,600 square feet?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Not, I'll call for a vote on resolution TC. Mr. Jacinto, you have a question? Or you're voting already? It's a good sign. So all in favor of resolution TC 30-66, please raise your hands. Thank you. Opposed? Abstentions? That is unanimous as well. Do we need, are we at the start date of this lease?
Right now, it's September 1st on the draft lease.
Even emergency legislation? Okay, is there a motion to make this resolution
moved.
emergency legislation? Did you get that? Phew, she's good. All right, all in favor of emergency legislation, please raise your hands. Thank you. Opposed, abstentions, unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Catalano. Best of luck.
Thank you for your support.
I guess we'll go back to item 3, resolution TC 30-72. Mr. Wolf, would you bring this to the floor, please?
Resolution TC 30-72, be it resolved that $40,000 is hereby appropriated from the fund balance to 0101-4200-52202 Planning and Zoning Professional Services.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Dorsey, committee report.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Rena Bacalar explained they are performing their plan of conservation development rewrite. They initially requested $100,000 and were allocated $75,000. The project was posted and the bid came in around $107,000. To complete the project, they need additional funding allocated. The $40,000 is enough that they have in writing and rounded it to $40,000. First Selectman explained this went through the ARPA process. She allocated $100,000 for the POCD. The Board of Finance left it at $100,000 and the Town Council reduced it to $75,000 and do need the additional funds. The POCD needs to be done, which is why this is a supplemental. But during the next ARPA process, the general fund can be refunded with ARPA funds if the council chooses to. It was confirmed emergency legislation would be helpful. Vote, motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. Any questions on this item? Not a call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Opposed, abstentions? That is unanimous.
Make a motion for emergency legislation.
Thank you much. Second. All in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Opposed, abstentions? We'll move on to item 4, resolution TC 30-73. Mr. Wick, would you bring this one to the floor, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Resolution TC 30-73. Be it resolved that $38,000 is hereby appropriated from the fund balance to 01010000-522202, Town Council Professional Services.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Dorsey, committee report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First Selectman Tesoro explained this is for an external auditor. They went out to bid 3 times. The first 2 bids, the first 2 times no bids were received. The third time they received 1 bid, Markham. The budget amount wasn't enough to cover the bid price. They didn't know what the bids would be. This will cover additional amount needed. The auditor is appointed for 3 years. It is difficult finding companies that want to do municipal work. The town had trouble with previous auditor because they couldn't staff the audit, which is not uncommon now. Markham is a big company and will be able to cover the audit. Excuse me. Maria Pyrus will be at the full town council meeting. Emergency legislation was recommended. Vote, motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? I think we clearly understand this from last month. Okay, then we'll call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous? Is there
Make
a motion?
for emergency legislation. I got you.
Thank you, Ms. Lenzen. All right, all in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Opposed? Abstentions? That's done. Brings us to item 5, resolution TC 30-74. Mr. Lemoyne, would you bring this to the floor, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Resolution TC 30-74, be it resolved that in accordance with Section 7-100K of the Connecticut General Statutes, and notwithstanding the language of Chapter 3, Section 6C, of the chapter of the Town of Trumbull, First Selectman is hereby empowered to appoint an assessor without a fixed term.
Second.
Thank you for the second. Mr. Pifko, committee report, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Shopik explained the town does not have an assessor right now and has a reevaluation coming up. People have applied, but after finding out per the town charter, the position is codeterminous with the first selectman's term. People are reluctant to take the job. The statute cited in this resolution allows the council to override the charter provision and change the appointment process. This will need 14 affirmative votes of the council. If there is a need to discuss the descriptions and/or explanations of individuals who applied, that would need executive session. Councilman Marsh noted that there are several towns in Connecticut that are having the same issue. Finding assessors is not a unique problem. Attorney Shopik stated Bridgeport has not had an assessor for years. Stratford puts off their evaluation because they do not have an assessor. Even though Trumbull pays more than some of the smaller towns, once they hear the term is limited, they stay where they are. It is the appointed position, but it is also a union position. Trumbull does have a history where an assessor was not reappointed, and he is working elsewhere today. People know it happened, and it has been a problem finding an assessor. Many towns are paying consultants, and there is a real cost to that, but there have been 4 qualified people who have turned down the job at the last minute because of the limited term. The vote, motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Pifko.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I would note that Tom McCarthy was at the committee
LNA.
meeting last week, and a lot of that information did come from Tom. And I would ask, with my head in my hand, that a friendly amendment to on the last line to change appoint an assessor, to change that to appoint a tax assessor. With bow my head to Mr. Sinto. The chart.
Is that for the record?
That's okay. It's yes. If Margaret chooses to put that in the record, it's fine with me. But the position is the same, but our charter and our budget designate the position as a tax assessor.
All right, so do we have that motion to change that language to add the word tax?
So moved.
Thank you. Second. All in favor? Thank you. Nobody's opposed. Abstentions? That's fine.
If anybody has any questions for me with regard to the substance of the motion.
I do. I would like to make a motion or I'd like the council to make a motion to go into executive session because I want to talk about the details of the job and as the minutes described. So I'm calling for a motion to go into executive session. Thank you. Second. I'd like to have the first selectman, her staff, Maria Pyrus, and the town attorney in the executive session.
We're going to vote on that.
We're discussing employment contractual terms. Yeah, we'll do that. The clerk needed a reason. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Anybody opposed? No abstentions. Okay, we're in executive session at 9:15. All right, we're back in session with Resolution TC 30-74. Do we have a motion? Mr. Dorsey?
I make a motion to amend TC 30-74, change language from without a fixed term to not to exceed 4 years.
A term not to exceed 4 years. Okay.
Yes.
Second, Ms. Lenzen, discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion to amend, raise your hands. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motions is carried. We have the resolution as amended. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion as amended. Twice amended. Thank you. All in favor, raise your hands. Anybody opposed? Abstentions? That's unanimous. Is there a need for emergency legislation?
Might as well.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Anybody opposed?
No one there.
So that was actually okay. She was not in the room.
She wasn't in the room.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
On the
I
other
didn't see you leave. I was. All right.
No. She voted on the way in.
On the way in.
Final, but I mean on the emergency legislation.
Thought she was voting on both.
Oh, okay. And I didn't
Can we
see
just
it.
say okay?
All right. I'm crossing that out. She was here.
Okay, number 7, Resolution TC 30-75. Let's see. Ms. Lenzen, would you please bring this to the floor?
Sure. Resolution TC 30-75, be it resolved that the resolution entitled Resolution Appropriating $142,375,000 for the planning, design, demolition, construction, renovation, equipping, and furnishing of a new Hillcrest Middle School and authorizing the issuance of $142,375,000 in bonds of the town to meet said appropriation and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. Adopted by the Town Council on July 1, 2024. Be submitted to the town electors for approval or disapproval at a referendum in conjunction with the general election to be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and that the warning of said referendum shall state the question to be voted upon. Full resolution attached.
Thank you, Mr. Pifko. Do you have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Shopik explained the question that will go on the ballot is on page 6 of the agenda. It is a yes or no question, and there will be an explanatory language for the public. Chairman Massaro added Attorney Shopik himself and bond counselor Keisha Palmer conferred on the question. They looked at some examples of these types of referendum questions and the explanatory texts. What Attorney Shopik described is a lengthy description which is largely taken from the Connecticut General Statutes 9-369 A and B. However, there is a term called a ballot label, which is a simple question and the yes or no response that will go on the ballot. The statute provides for posting information, the explanatory text at the polling places and at the town hall, since there is an early absentee voting. Wherever voters are going to appear to vote on this referendum question, there'll be additional information. Chairman Massaro asked the superintendent to provide information on the purpose of the new school and the finance director for the tax impact information. The onus of outreach and advocacy for the project was put to the Board of Ed and the superintendent's office. The Board of Finance and the council have approved the bonding, and now the question goes to the people in this referendum question. The statute states that what is put on the ballot, both the question and the explanatory text, cannot be advocational. As an example, the ballot question is similar to a proxy vote received in mail that reads, the Board of Directors recommends an affirmative action vote, but we are prohibited from supporting or opposing the referendum question in the explanatory text We are mindful and careful that the BOE needs a new school and wants a new school. First Selectman Tesaro explained the tentative plan is there. Will be a presentation done in conjunction with the Board of Education and the town. In 2007, when the high school renovation was discussed, even though it was not a referendum, there was a presentation that was made at the Trumbull High School for the entire community. Since there will be early voting, Councilman Cinto questioned whether the resolution should read differently. It reads as voting on November 5th. Chairman Massaro will look into that. Attorney Shopik noted that people will send in absentee ballots prior to the election. The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you for that summary, Mr. Pifko. So this is the referendum question for the Hillcrest School. I guess I'll ask the council any questions on what's been presented. Mr. Dorsey?
So I understand this is just a vote for a referendum so that people can decide, but part of this, to me, has to be educational. I've asked several times over several bonding requests, what is the incremental impact to taxes when for every additional $1 million? I know I've asked, it's been asked before, and we have not been able to get an answer. I understand there's an advocacy issue, but at what point will that be a factual point presented to the town of Trumbull?
I believe the finance department has our financial consultant working on that. As soon as, I don't know, Maria, when that's going to be ready, but
I'm not sure yet.
we don't have a return date. But it will certainly be before the referendum.
I just want to follow up. Every time I ask a question around this, the answer is I don't know. And we did it during budget season. I know we've asked for questions. I'm not asking to lock anyone in on a number, but at some point, we have to have some facts before we get to a referendum question.
Right, and I think everybody agrees with you. That's a factor for people to consider. So Maria has commissioned that study, understanding there obviously are a lot of variables, interest rate being the major variable that we have no control over. But there will be something for the public before this goes out to referendum.
Mr. Shopik?
Yeah.
In the interim,
Through the chair.
Through the chair, excuse me. Would it be possible, Maria, to just for an analogy to kind of look back at the high school build like new renovation and kind of extrapolate what the tax effect was when we have that data, right?
Yeah, I started looking at this. When I talked to the advisory, suggested to wait because there's also tax growth, mill rate increase, the grand list growth, the budget increase every year for the next 20 years. So there's a whole calculation that's built onto that. Our financial advisor has that program already, that template available, and he was going to generate that for us. This week he's on vacation, and we spoke with him last week to work on it when he comes back. So I will refer to him. And yeah, I've done some work on that, but I did want him to take a look at this to project, the grand list, the expenditure increase every year, be it 2%, 3%, all the growth. So there's more challenges than just coming up with a number. It's a little bit more complicated. And maybe you don't want it as that complicated. Maybe we're making it too complicated. But I just think you need to look at all those variables.
Mr. Cinto?
Hi, Maria.
Hi.
For some of the new people, can you explain, I know you explained it to me before, you don't bond all the money at once. Can you
Correct.
explain how the process works? So I know you
Yep.
you go out for short-term stuff and you pay it all. So just if you can just the Cliff Note version of that.
Yeah, so it depends how long this project is going to take to build. Let's say it takes 4 years. The first year, we issued notes, short-term notes for a year. It could be just $10 million. It could be just 1 year's needs of cash flow to build that project. The next year, then we permanent borrow that 10 million, and we could borrow another 10 million as notes. So it could take several years before we actually borrow the entire project. We won't borrow until the project is completed, fully completed. So we bond, we permanent borrow in phases as the project is completed. I don't know if that makes sense. Questions?
So in theory, you're going to have all different interest rates, all different bonding
Exactly.
rates over
Exactly.
that time.
Yep.
So just hypothetically, if you could bond $10 million more than we bond, so it could be, instead of bonding, say, $12 million a year, we could be bonding 22.
Yep. We could do that.
It could be doubled, hypothetically.
Yes. Yes.
So that would definitely change.
Right,
the
and the
function
first
of
10
everything.
million would be a note, so it's only interest for the year. Subsequent year could be notes plus fully permanent borrowing, which means principal and interest. So yeah, there's a lot more variables to it.
Ms. Guardiano, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. I agree, Councilman Dorsey, right? I've been wanting this number, and I think that this piece, and we've talked with the first selectman about how important this is for an educational campaign. I do think we need the right number, or as close to the right number, because I worry that people would hear a number and latch onto that, and then get their tax bills and go, but you
Right.
told me it was
These are all
going to be,
estimates, yes.
right? And so I think we have to figure out how to thread that needle of as close to formulaic as possible, and also this is an estimate.
Correct.
So that people understand what they're voting on, what that will potentially look like. I don't know if we can do ranges, right? This could be from here to here on your tax bill. But I do think we have to get this in order for people to become informed and make a decision about whether to approve 142 million less 44% for a huge ballot question. Dan, that component is still education though, right? That's not an advocacy component. So we can sit as a town and do presentations on the figure, right? And get that information out. That doesn't air into the advocacy side. Is that correct? Or do you see that? I mean, again, we're threading a needle. I'm just thinking about timing, right? Because we're going to hit a point where we can't do anything but educate around this. We have to step back from that advocacy side, but we can sit all the way up until November and talk about what this costs.
Well, certainly, yes, you absolutely can talk about what it costs, yes. In terms of the advocacy portion, that's where I think we talked about last week, that the PTAs.
Right. I know there's other groups.
Other parent groups, that would be more appropriate advocates.
Correct. I'm just making sure that we have the time on our side to sit and have these presentations or conversations or whatever needs to happen around this dollar figure, and that's education, not advocacy. As far as you see
I
it.
believe that's true. I think I'm going to run that by bond council
Okay.
before. But there is the statute. Take a look at the statute on referendum. Was it 7-369 or something like that? Was that? I can send it around to everybody.
That's fine. I just don't want to miss a window of where we flip from not being able to advocate and that this is in the wrong bucket. That's all.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we're good.
We'll get you an answer.
Statutes in Title IX,
9-369.
369A and B and C and all of that. Any other? Okay, Mr. Callahan, go right ahead.
I just have one question on the math. Explain to me when the 44% comes back in the process.
Well, the state of Connecticut is providing a 44%.
When do you get it back?
When do we get it back? After the end?
No, we don't. Not
As we
anymore.
go?
No, as we go, it's progress payments. As we spend the money, we send a request to the state and we get reimbursed probably within a couple of months.
Market, I got.
Mr. Pifko.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with everything everyone said as far as I'd love to hear a number and how this really, what does this mean to me? Not to the town, but to me. But secondly, and it's a time of our age, a problem of this period of time, that I understand that it will be posted on, the information will be posted on websites and things like that. And I'm glad to hear that there'll be some presentations because all the things about websites, you have to go looking for them, okay? It's not there unless you look for them, okay? We have to have information in people's faces so that they see it, without advocating, but just to educate. So my analogy is always, if you get a paper newspaper, you run by things that you never were looking for. If you do the same newspaper online, you've got to go looking for every item. And that's where we are here. You can't, it has to be available for people, and they shouldn't have to search for it. So, the people that are voting early, what are we doing about them? Because they are not, if I agree.
It'll be available for anybody to vote. Now, there's a difference between early voting, in which case you're coming into the, probably in town hall to vote, in which case it will be posted at the polling place, so that somebody can stand there and read it, as it will be on regular voting days. At each voting place, there will be a board with the explanation of what it is they're voting on. Absentee ballot voters will also get a copy of what it is they're voting on.
Okay, good. Good, thank you.
You're quite right. It's something we battle with all the time of getting people information, and I keep saying that this is the information age, but it's very difficult to communicate with people because there's many different platforms. So I always tell people to go to the town website. The town website is got lots of information on it, but most people don't go to the town website. So it's very frustrating. So we will, when this presentation is done, we will post it obviously on the town website. Right on the home page, there will be a button on the home page that will be dedicated to that. So there's other buttons that are dedicated. There's a button dedicated to ARPA funding, separate. Don't have to go navigating through and swimming through the website looking for it. So we will make sure that that is, somewhere that they don't have to look too far. It'll be right on the home page of the website. And as I said, we hope that we're going to make the presentation here, the Board of Finance, and to the public, in person and to the public. And the Board of Education needs to be involved in this as well.
Mr. Wolf.
Just out of curiosity, I know the financial advisor's on vacation. What do you think the turnaround time would be for him to get these numbers? I mean, specifically, like, when's the last time you asked him about it?
We had a bond meeting last week, and we brought it up. I brought it up to him a couple weeks before, and then I brought it up last week, but now he's on vacation. But I would say probably in a month or less than a month, depending what the timing is.
Okay, so you asked him 3 weeks ago and another 4 weeks on top of that. Okay.
I'm not sure what the dates are for these meetings. Obviously, if the meetings are sooner, I'm sure you can turn it on quicker.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think we need some figures by the end of the month because, September hits and the registrars and the town clerk have things to do to get the ballot ready. So the sooner we have that component, the better. I know there is a narrative from the Board of Ed, or actually from Dr. Semmel. Whether that can go out there or not, that has to be vetted, I would say, through bond counsel. I don't know if this helps or just confuses things worse, but if you take the 142 million and we're going to pay 56%, it's about $80 million that will ultimately bond if it all goes according to the numbers, so to speak. you take 5% interest rate on that, it's $4 million of interest a year. Don't hold me to it, but I think our budget went up by $4 million approximately this year, and so you know what that did to your taxes. I don't know if I'm in outer space or if that's a reasonable number to chew on, but it's something I thought of. Before we go to a vote, I just wanted to thank everybody for getting to this night, which was a schedule that I had put out for the council, and I wanted to thank folks up at Long Hill for doing their things that they needed to do with their grant applications and all that goes into that. And I want to thank Bond Counsel Keisha Palmer for working with Dan and I, and she drafted this resolution, I think, right? Because it wasn't me. Although we looked at a lot of things that looked like this, and I think that was the consensus. This was a good way to go. Any other questions on this resolution? Then I will call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hands. Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? I think that's unanimous. I don't think we need emergency legislation for this. We don't start voting for a few months. All right, let's go to our last resolution, which is item 8, resolution TC 30-76. Mr. Marsh, would you move this to the floor, please?
Resolution TC 30-76, be it resolved that the town clerk of Trumbull is directed to prepare explanatory text for the Hillcrest Middle School referendum question with the approval of the town attorney in consultation with bond counsel and the council chairman.
Second.
Thank you. Committee report, Mr. Pifko.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Massaro explained this is a corollary to the prior resolution. It's implicit to give direction to the town clerk per statute that once the council approves the referendum question, then they will be on the clock to do the explanatory text. He is sure they will be in contact. Vote, motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Pifko. Any questions on this resolution? I think it speaks for itself. All right. Then I will call for a vote. All in favor of this resolution, please raise your hands. Thank you. Opposed? Abstentions? I think that concludes our agenda tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Sorry you all missed the Olympics. We all missed it.
Take that emergency.
Do we need... We'd be in real trouble if I had to do that. All right. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the summer.